In this video, we're going to be talking about section 5.3, which is about proportions. So a proportion is an equation that sets two ratios equal to one another. And we show you algebraically here, for example, a over b equals c over d. Then we say that the fraction a over b is proportional to c over d. Or another way you could say that is a is to b as c is to d. So those are ways that you might see it written in a problem. And there's a great way to check to see if things are proportional, and that is to check and see if their cross products are equal, because they better be. So consider, for example, the fraction 1/2. Can you think of another fraction that has the same equivalent value of 1/2? Given enough time, you could probably think of a lot of them, but let's consider the fraction 4 over 8, because we know that this, if you simplify it, equals 1/2, right? But we can check to see that these are proportional by go ahead and multiplying their cross product. And cross product means I take the cross diagonal. So in this case, I'm going to multiply 1 times 8, and that equals 8. And then I'm going to multiply the other diagonal, 2 times 4, and that also equals 8. And since our cross products are equal, then we know that these two fractions, 1 over 2 and 4 over 8, they're proportional. So we can check to see if things are proportional just by setting them up and checking the cross products. So determine whether 3, 14, and 6, 26 are proportional. So let's set it up. 3, 14, and the question is, does that equal 6 over 26? Now you may already know the answer to this, but I want you to be able to show it mathematically. So let's go ahead and check the cross products. The first one we're going to do is going to be 3 times 26. And when we multiply that, what do we get? We get 78, that's right. And then we're going to multiply the other diagonal, 6 times 14. And what do we get when we multiply that? That's right, we get 84. These are not equal, so these two situations are not proportional. Excuse me. And it's important that you actually answer the question. So this says determine whether they are proportional. The answer is that they are not proportional. Okay, so make sure just doing the work is not enough. You have to make sure that you answer the actual question. Okay, determine whether 2.8, 6.4, and 3.5, 8.0 are proportional. So again, we're going to set it up. Notice that I put 2.8 and then 6.4. Notice I put this one on top, this one second. I'm going to do the same thing on this one here. 3.5, the first one goes on top. 8.0, the second one goes on the bottom. Okay, and the question is, are they proportional? So we're going to take a look at the cross products here. 2.8 times 8.0, and when we multiply that, what do we get? That's right, 22.4. And then we're going to multiply across the other diagonal. So I've got 3.5 times 6.4. And what do we get when we multiply those? You're probably ahead of me, but we get 22.4. So in this case, these are proportional. And you get the idea of making sure that you answer the question. Okay. Now let's look at how we're actually going to solve proportions. So sometimes we will be given a proportion that has an unknown value, and we're going to use the cross products to figure out how to solve this. Okay? So in this case, I have 8 over 14, and that equals some unknown value x over 49. So what this tells me here is that, I should go back up here, I didn't put the formula. We use the cross products, a times c, and that will equal b times x. And then you think back to how we solve equations like this in our work that we did in the skills review, and I just need to divide both sides by b, and I would be able to get x, right? Because b over b is 1, and that would give me x by itself. Okay, so I'm going to do that same thing here. 8 times 49, and that's going to give me 14 times x. I'm going to go ahead and simplify just for a moment. What is 8 times 49? Not divided by like I just did. 8 times 49 is 392. Hopefully you're following along here. And that equals 14 times x, or we're just going to put 14x. Now I'm going to divide by both sides by 14. Occasionally it messes up. It looks like a 19. 14. So divide by 14. And that's going to give me x equals 28. So if I think back to my original equation, 8 over 14 is the same as 28 over 49. Okay? The x is not always going to be in the numerator, so in this case the x is in the denominator. It's not a problem. Still just do your cross products. So 9 times 13, and that equals 5 times x. So 9 times 13, of course, that's 117. And that is going to equal 5x. So now I'm going to divide by 5. And I get x equals 23.4. Now if you put it as 23.4, that's fine. This problem, we didn't start with decimals or fractions. I mean, technically these are fractions, but I'm fine with this answer of 23.4. You could also write it as, of course, 23 and 2/5, because 0.4, remember, is 2/5. I would accept either of these answers. Be careful though when you're dealing with decimals that are repeating. So if this were 23.3333 repeating, please do not round that. You would need to write it as a fraction. Okay, we got a couple more. This one does involve decimals, and it says write your answer as a decimal. Okay, so across the diagonal I have 8 times x equals 2.6 times 10.4. So, and I go ahead and multiply that out. I'm going to have 8x equals 27.04, or 4/100. I'm going to divide by divide by 8 on both sides. And when I divide by 8, I get x equals 3.38. It says to write my answer as a decimal, and I did that, so I'm good. On this last one here, I'm starting out with fractions, and that's okay. So I have 3 1/2 times 22, and that equals 5 1/4 times x. If you feel more comfortable working with these as improper fractions, you can go ahead and do that. But if you're fine leaving them as mixed numbers, that's fine too. So when I multiply this, I get 77 equals 5 1/4 x. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5 1/4, divide by 5 1/4, and I'm going to get x equals, here's a great answer, 14.666 repeating. Okay, this, first of all, it says write as a mixed number, but also 0.66 repeating, even if I put the bar over it, that's just an approximation. So I want you to remember, what is 0.66 repeating? Well, if you remember back, that is 2/3. So we're going to write it as 14 2/3. That's how we work with proportions. So we'll see you in the next video.